All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock for the February 19th, 2025 White Bear Township Board meeting. First item on the agenda is the approval. I talked to Patrick. He's going to be a couple minutes late. He had no changes. Does the board have anything?
I had no additions or deletions.
Beth?
The only addition I'd make is apparently was BBT was reported.
We'll get to it when we do the minutes.
Okay, sorry.
All right, well, if there's no changes to the agenda, I need a motion to approve.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, item 3 is approval of payment of bills. Steve, you sign off?
I signed off, and move approve to payment of the bills.
A second.
Motion's made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, item 4 is approval of the prior minute meetings. This is from February 3rd, 2025. Beth, you have a correction?
Yep, instead of the BBT, it should be the BVT.
Do you have a page on that, Steve, or not?
It was early on.
She can find it.
It was actually right, early on the last time.
Yeah, it's
It's in the
approval of the minutes of the
Additions and
January 22, 2025 paragraph.
That's right, because we couldn't do it. Yep,
Yeah.
he's correct.
So
All
it's,
right, there any other corrections?
no.
Hearing none, I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I have a
Second.
All right. Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, item 5 is the consent agenda items. We have 6. Does the board wish to pull any, or do they all look fine?
They look fine to me. Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. All right, item 6 is old business. We are Rice Creek Watershed District grant application. Dale, are you going to cover that for us?
Yes. We were fortunate enough to be, we submitted 2 grants in December. We were notified in early February that we're reviewing them and going to be approving them for the town here.
Yeah, you're going to have to speak up a little.
I'm sorry, I thought I was speaking up loud enough. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
All right. So we have 2 grants that we submitted for in December, and then in early February, we were notified that 2 applicants were recommended by the Citizen Advisory Commission to move forward to the Board of Managers. And last week, the Board of Managers on the 12th of February had a meeting to review and discuss the applicants, and there were 5 applications from 4 different cities. The township had 2 applications in there for a grant, and they were all approved as going forward for the Board of Managers to finalize here in the 26th of February at their meeting. And what is in there is that we have a grant amount. We have a project that's for $475,000, the total project cost. The Rice Creek Board of Managers approved a $100,000 grant for that project. And then we had that is the Bel Air Beach Stormwater Project, which is an underground storage system under what would be where the current parking lot is. And then other improvements along with that within the park, stormwater improvements, the pond, and connecting to that. And then we have the other one for the Silver Fox area, Saffel baffles. That was the original amount we requested was $73,250, and they ended up approving $50,000 for that project. I'm here to just get a feel for the board if they want to move forward with these grant applications. I will let the Rice Creek Watershed District staff know that we still want to pursue these based on the projects.
Dale, can you review the Saffel baffle?
It's a structure with a baffle inside. It captures sediments and floatables, and then if the water spills over into another portion, then it discharges.
These are on retention ponds.
Well, they're not a basin. It's a structure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got a retention and a level of retention. Yes.
All right, Steve, any questions or comments?
The one at Bel Air Beach, just for clarity purposes.
Sure.
When you get a grant, that's not a 100% grant, correct?
That is correct.
So this would be a cost sharing, and have we priced out, you want to know if we want to go forward? Well, I don't know if we know what is what we're looking at? How much, is it a one-third, or is it 50/50?
So the grant is about 20% of the cost.
20%.
Yeah, it's a $475,000 project. I have spoken with our partners that, based on the South Shore, the project from South Shore Boulevard, there was a distribution of the cost for maintenance of the storm system at Bel Air Beach between Ramsey County, White Bear Lake, and the township. The percentages were, Ramsey was 13%, the city was 29%, and the township was 58%. So that, hopefully that number adds up to 100. But I've talked to our partners about participating with it, and I haven't heard back from Ramsey County, but they obviously were in support. They sent letters in for support,
Okay.
letters of support for the project. But it's just a matter of, can they get it in their next year's budget that we could get reimbursed for that portion.
So at this point, you just have to let Rice Creek know that we're interested in pursuing this, but we haven't got any firm agreements with our partners? Or whether even the township is willing to go forward with it?
Yeah, and that's the reason I'm here, to ask that question of the board, is their desire to move forward with that project based on the 20% or $100,000 that Rice Creek is grant to help offset the cost.
And the main, I'm sorry to take so much time, the main purpose for this is really to improve the stormwater before it goes into White Bear Lake itself.
Correct.
And we've looked at this in the past, but it was cost prohibitive for us alone.
Correct.
And so we looked for grant funding.
And we've got the opportunity here of 100,000, which is the maximum that Rice Creek offers on any one grant annually.
Okay.
Beth, questions, comments?
No, I do not.
Well, I don't see any disadvantage to pursuing this, obviously. I mean, these are projects that were slated that we're going to try to get done anyway, so any help we can get would be beneficial to us.
What is the timetable for their grant commitment? Is it the calendar year?
Yes,
or
so it would
2
be
years?
this year, 2025.
So the project would have to be funded in 2025?
Correct.
Makes.
And I've checked with the finance officer, and we have funding available to cover those costs for the storm fund.
And the timing for Bel Air, real quickly, for Bel Air Beach is because the parking lot itself is deteriorated, and we've been waiting to figure out other options before we tear it up and have to tear it up a second time, so.
Didn't want to put a new parking lot in and then have the construction of the stormwater. And we want to take advantage of this opportunity for underground storage as an option prior to moving forward with the parking lot.
I know when you apply for grants and you get them, it's kind of hard to rescind after you've been accepting them. What happens if our partners don't want to participate? Do we have to have a verbal or some sort of written agreement before we continue?
Technically, we have that agreement. It's based on the South Shore model that we had for South Shore Boulevard. The drainage for that, the county came up with that percentage based.
What kind of an agreement?
It's a maintenance agreement for that. Just that system.
Chad, have you had a chance to look at that or not?
Yeah, I've read them.
Okay. I'm just concerned because, like I said, when you apply for grants and if there's any kind of a hiccup, we're still on the hook.
We would be funding the project up front and then seeking
All right.
reimbursement.
As long as we do our due diligence and we've got paperwork in front of us so we know that these parties are committed. Because like Steve said, I know Ramsey County can be kind of wishy-washy on a lot of this stuff, so.
The conversation with the county representative was good and felt that they both, and as they indicated in the letters, they both level of support for this project.
All right. So is this just an informational or do you need an actual motion to proceed?
I guess I'd like a motion from the board to proceed with accepting the grant from Rice Creek Watershed District.
Well, if the board's comfortable.
Yeah, I'm comfortable because, these are both projects that are very beneficial to stormwater and the township as in general. I'll make a motion to go forward with the Rice Creek Watershed District grant application process. And I'd also like this to be an item for the executive meeting next week so we can talk a little bit more of the details. Same time?
I can second that.
All right, motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, moving on. Items, we have a couple of public hearings. First is item 7A. This is Portland Woods Street Improvement 2024-2. I'm going to need a motion to waive the reading.
I'll move to waive the reading that was properly published.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Then I need a motion to open up the public hearing.
I'll move to open up the public hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, Larry, you going to give us an overview on this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and Town Board. I have a short slideshow that I'll run through, and then we can open up to the public. So Portland Woods, just to give a little bit of background on Portland Woods, it's located off of Portland Avenue. This street appears was a private street that the town board took over at some point down the line. Originally constructed in 1988, had several seal coats on it. Residential property, all residential property. It's a real short roadway, just 1/10 of a mile. And then it has a pavement rating of 0.8 today. If you recall, the pavement rating, the town board rates their streets over once every 3 or 4 years. They rate all the streets, and in this case, 2025 rating 0.8 out of 5, from 0 to 5. And typically when we see ratings below 2, we are looking at a larger improvement that would be needed to bring that street into a good condition. It has concrete curb and gutter already, B612 curb, but it's irregular. It in some cases the height is it varies. It's a little bit odd type of curb construction when it was originally built. The street width out in Portland Woods is 21 feet wide. Bituminous depth is 5 to 8.5 inches. And there has been some patching on the roadway just to keep things together. So we did a feasibility study, and that feasibility study, first we collect data, including geotechnical exploration, doing soil borings to see what the soil composition is like, pavement coring to understand the pavement depths. We look at wetland delineation. We review all the stormwater in the area. We look at the utilities to see what might be needed for utility improvements. And then we also take public feedback in the form of questionnaires that were sent to the public, and then neighborhood meetings for the project. And then we begin to study the improvements and offer the town board options to complete improvements. We perform cost calculations, look at funding for the project, assessments, and then a schedule for the project. So based on that review and the report, the feasibility report, we're recommending a reclamation where we're grinding and mixing the bituminous to the gravel underneath to form a new base, remove the excess material, and repave. We're also proposing to replace that irregular curb and gutter on the project. We looked at increasing the width. 21 feet is under the township standard. But when we reviewed the right-of-way, the utilities, and you can see on this photograph the large trees that are near the road, we're recommending keeping the width as it is. And then we're recommending replacing the irregular curb with a kind of a surmountable curb style. You can see a cut section of what that surmountable looks like. It has a 3-inch back to it, and it's drive over everywhere. So if someone is parked on the roadway, it's not a wide roadway, people could still get around with a larger vehicle, getting around that vehicle. So public comment, we had the questionnaires, which we received a number of questionnaires on the project. It's a small project, not a lot of homes on the project. And we held a neighborhood meeting on November 13th, and again in February. On November 13th, there was one person from the from the neighborhood that attended. For our February meeting, nobody attended. But the concerns we heard based on the questionnaires and the November meeting, some specific drainage or no specific drainage issues were reported. They were suggesting and encouraging surmountable curb. And then, of course, there's concerns with speeds on, I think, Portland and Highway 96. So looking at the cost for this project, we've computed the street improvement cost to replace the curb and gutter or repave, and we're computing $462,000 total for the project. Of course, there's assessments that go along with street improvement projects in the township, and those assessments are distributed to the property owners, the benefiting property owners on the project. And we're proposing an assessment at this point of $12,000 per each residential unit, which would be confirmed with appraisals that are currently being performed. And then those assessments either can be paid off or paid down at the time they are assessed, which would be the fall of this year if the project moves forward, or they can be rolled onto your taxes for a period of 10 years with interest. All units are assessed the same rate per unit, and corner lots through the assessment policy are assessed at a half a unit each for each improved side. In this case, there's one street, so half a unit. So kind of looking at the assessment costs, of the $462,000 on the project, $369,000 of that is assessable. We've got 8.5 units on this project. Multiplying 8.5 by $12,000 is $102,000 of the assessments of the total costs. This is an assessment map for the project. You can see the kind of the irregularity of the roadway. Each property, again, is assessed one unit each, other than the property at the corner of, on the south side of that. And we're proposing 1.5 units based on the frontage and the area of the property. It could be subdividable. The property, you ask, well, why not the property on the north side? Well, that north side, there's a wetland or stormwater pond, or I think it's wetland on the north side, which would consume that other half unit. So we'd propose a 1 unit on the north side and 1.5 on the south side at the entrance of Portland Woods, and then the rest are assessed 1 unit each. So this is the funding table. Assessments account for the $102,000 of the project costs. The rest come from other funding or township levy, including $267,000 for township funds and levy funds. Water utility fund would cover any water hydrant improvements and valves, $65,000. Sanitary utility fund would cover the storm or sanitary sewer casting work, and the storm fund would cover $21,000 for stormwater improvements. The communications on the project is we have a number of avenues to communicate with property owners on this project, and really our clearinghouse for information is on the town website, which is listed there for this project. There's a dedicated page to this project. And so any information that is for this project can be found there. We've sent out the questionnaires. We've had the neighborhood meetings. If the project moves forward, we'll do a project newsletter, which will have a lot of information about construction, the schedule, contact information, frequently asked questions, a lot of information on that newsletter that would go out if the project moves forward and we're getting ready for construction. We also have daily updates that people can sign up for receiving, or they can visit that website to see those daily updates. Then, of course, with these projects, they're in these neighborhoods and in front of homes. People want to know the impacts, and there'll be an inspector available to meet with people, understand their concerns, or if there's access concerns, deliveries, or graduation parties, we want to know that so we can try to work with property owners on the project. So project schedule, we're right here kind of in the middle with the public hearing tonight, ordering the project. And if it moves forward, we would hold another open house meeting with the residents to view the plans as they are completed. And it'd probably be the late March, maybe even early April at this point to view the plans. And that would be an open house type format where people can come in at any time in a window to view the plans and look at their property. With approval of the plans, we would go out for bid and get bids for the project. In May, we'd award a project to a contractor, assuming we get good bids for the project. Construction in the summer, and then that assessment hearing in the fall when the work is completed. So tonight we have several requested actions, opening the public hearing, receiving public comment, and then if appropriate, the board feels it appropriate, order the improvements. In this case, a supermajority is needed, 4/5 votes, because there's 3 board members. That would mean all board members would need to vote for the ordering the improvements. And then give any details that you wish to us on the design, and then authorize preparation of plans and specs. So those are the requested actions, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Yes,
No, not right now.
Steve?
The project in and of itself, as far as the street rating, the degradation rating, is this fall in line with all of our other projects that we've been doing from year to year to year, as far as the rating level? I mean, it's at 0.8, it's very low.
0.8 is on the lower end. So we, when we're doing reclamation or reconstruction of projects, they're under that level 2. But really, when they fall under 1, it's really time.
We spend more than it's worth to maintain the street at this point. It's time to make major repairs.
You saw some of the photograph here with the patching. When you're doing the skin type patching on the roadway to keep it together, now the township is expending funds to hold things together. It's an indication that you might want to look at a larger improvement.
And with that rating and deterioration with our weather here, it could go rather quickly to even worse.
Yeah, I mean these patching doesn't hold up over a long time.
No other questions?
Larry, the one corner lot, I think you said it was 1.5 assessment.
Yes.
Would that one be stubbed out for an extra lot if you figured out where it would be subdivided? When all this work is done, would it be stubbed for sewer and water?
And maybe already stubbed for sewer and water. I don't know, Dale, if you know that, but
I don't know.
But I mean, obviously that's the time to do it. If it's even possible to split the lot, then it wouldn't be something that would have to be done afterwards.
right.
And then the cost for the assessments, where does that run percentage-wise for the job? I know we have to assess at least 20, but we try to stay under 30 or so.
Yes, in this case, with this calculation, and again, we're hoping for better bids than maybe we're estimating now, but we're right now at 22%.
20 what?
22%.
22. All right. Which falls in line with our policy. So that's pretty good if we get that bid in. All right, I have no other further questions of staff. If there's no other questions from the board, I need a motion to open it up for public comment.
I'll move to open the hearing up for public comment.
Second the motion?
Motion made second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Is there anyone here that would wish to speak to this project, the Portland Woods street improvements? No one? Going once? Going twice? All right, I need a motion to close the portion.
I'll move to close the public portion of the hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Well, if there's no other questions, what's the pleasure of the board?
Well, I'll move based on the town engineer's review and recommendation, adopt the resolution ordering the improvement and the resolution ordering preparation of plans and specifications. Can you separate them or are they together?
I would do them separately.
Okay, so I'll make a motion in recommendation to adopt the resolution ordering the improvements.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
And then I'll make a second motion based on the town engineer review and recommendation for the resolution ordering preparations of plans and specifications.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion's made second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion carries. Moving on, we have another public hearing. This one's for Anderson Lane Street Improvements, 2024-3. I'll go over this one there.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and Town Board. So Anderson Lane reconstruction is another short roadway cul-de-sac in the township. From what we can gather from records, originally constructed in 1986. There was a utility project in 1999. Several seal coats again in that 2005 and 2011 timeframe. Again, this is all residential property. This roadway is a 1/4 mile in length. A similar rating to Portland Woods, a 0.7 in today's rating. It has a little bit of bituminous curbing. I think may have been added later, but that's been failing and eroding. Street width on this roadway is 22 feet wide, and the bituminous is only 2 inches thick in its depth, which is contributing to the degradation. So again, we do a study of the area. I won't walk through all these steps again, but I'm reviewing all the information gathered for the project. Then we perform our study of the area, cost calculations, funding, and assessments for the project. And in this case, we're again recommending reclamation for the project, reclaiming, grinding, and mixing that bituminous into the thickness of the existing gravel and paving over that. We're also recommending adding concrete curb and gutter, which I'll talk about a little bit more here. And then also increasing from the 22 feet in width to 28 feet in width. The picture on the screen shows how a 28-foot wide roadway looks with parking and maneuvering a emergency vehicle through that street. We're also recommending addition of a little bit of storm sewer to improve the drainage on the project, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then I just wanted to mention that we did receive 2 petitions on the project, which I have a slide dedicated to that as well. So let's talk a little bit about concrete curb and gutter. Portland Woods already had concrete curb and gutter, but I want to talk a little bit about Anderson Lane and adding concrete curb and gutter. And we would be recommending that surmountable style curb for the area, and really that I want to talk about some of the advantages of concrete curb and gutter. I know with the petitioning, some of the residents or most of the residents do not want curb and gutter, but really the advantages of curb and gutter are really to protect the road and control drainage. So when we don't have curb and gutter on a street like this, as you can imagine, the water flows to that edge, and it sits against the edge of the road. If there's not good drainage off of it, sometimes over time that area next to the road builds up with vegetation, and then that water just sits on that edge, and then the garbage trucks comes by, and that saturated edge starts to break off. So really what we're trying to do with and recommending concrete curb and gutter is to control that drainage, getting it away from the edge of the road and into catch basin inlets. And by doing that and building this road properly, we're trying to get a good long life out of the street, trying to get a 60-year life out of the street with proper seal coating, crack sealing, and strategic mill and overlays along the way. And so just building the street properly, getting that drainage off the street, because that drainage is really the enemy of the street. It causes, that freeze-thaw cycle to break things apart. And that edge control and getting that edge to stay intact is the advantage. So, curb and gutter controls the drainage, defines the street, reduces that edge failure, reduces plow damage, and improve aesthetics. So the graphic down below is just shows the storm sewer we'd be recommending for the street. There's an existing culvert on the eastern edge near the cul-de-sac that brings drainage or allows drainage to pass underneath the street. We'd look at replacing that and then adding catch basins that are tied into the curb and gutter could get the drainage off the street into the catch basins and then away from the street. And then we also have additional catch basins that we would recommend near Centerville Road that would be added to control drainage and tie in either to the pond or to the culvert that's on the near Centerville Road. And again, we'd have catch basin inlets that would get that drainage into the piping and away from the street. All right, so public comment, we had 2 neighborhood meetings and the questionnaires, as we mentioned with the other previous project. Both neighborhood meetings were very well attended. A lot of good discussion at both meetings, and just walking through their project and their requests. And so some of the current concerns we heard is specific drainage issues, construction traffic, with construction of a nearby development. Some construction traffic may have used Anderson Lane and contributed possibly to some of that degradation in the later stages of the roadway. The cul-de-sac, concerns that the cul-de-sac is not large enough. Some early on questioned the project need for the project. Centerville Road concerns, at times taking a left out of Anderson Lane onto Centerville Road is a challenge with the traffic on Centerville Road. We heard some specific utility concerns, concerns about access and mail during construction, and then costs and assessments were a large concern for the neighborhood. So I'll talk a little bit about the petitions we received. The first request was requesting assessments no more than 25% of the project costs. We received these petitions before the study was completed. The study, based on the costs that we are computing now, were about 24%. So it may change, that percentage may change as you get bids, but that's kind of where we're sitting right now. They requested a mill and overlay. I think that might have been before they realized we only have 2 inches of bituminous, and that really a mill and overlay is not feasible with only 2 inches of bituminous. And we are, in terms of degradation, past the point where we could just do an overlay on top of the 2 inches. Then they requested no widening and no curb and gutter. Okay, we'll get into some of the costs. In this project, we've computed costs of $961,000 for the project. And again, this slide is similar to the last project, but assessments are distributed to property owners, and we're looking at the same type of assessment, $12,000 for each residential unit. And if people in the fall of this year, if the project moves forward, can either pay down or pay off that assessment amount at that time, or it can be distributed onto your taxes for a 10-year period with interest. Again, all units are assessed the same amount of the $12,000. Corner lots are half a unit for each improved side. Of this 961,000, 765,000 is accessible to the property owners. We have 19 and a half total accessible units at $12,000. The preliminary assessment amount is $234,000 for the assessment portion of the project. This is the assessment map. It includes basically a per unit for each property other than the corner lot. In this case, it's similar to Portland Woods, but the north corner is subdividable. And so we have a half a unit for the corner and 1 unit for another unit for that property. The property to the south has a wetland or ponding on the corner, so we'd be looking at 1 unit for that property. It should be noted that the township owns a piece of property along this frontage, and 1 unit is assigned to the township of those 19 and a half units. So this is our funding table for the project. You can see assessments, $234,000. Township funds are levied to the rest of the township, $531,000. And then again, the water fund picks up the water improvements for valves and hydrant work. Sanitary utility fund picks up costs for the manhole adjustments and rings and castings. And the storm utility fund would cover the cost for the new storm sewer that we'd be proposing for the project. This slide, similar to the last project, is we have a project website dedicated to this project that town residents can review and gather information about this project. Again, we have our neighborhood meetings and questionnaires. We've been interacting with this neighborhood a bit. Project newsletters, again, if the project moves forward, we prepare a newsletter to be distributed to all the property owners with contact information, emergency contact information, schedules, and frequently asked questions again. And then, of course, individual meetings are always encouraged if there's concerns for the project along the way, and or if there's special needs, deliveries, or grad parties that are occurring. We want to know about those things. This would follow a similar schedule where if the project is ordered tonight, we would work on the plans and specs and bring those back to the neighborhood at another meeting for discussing how the plans or how the plans are shaping up and affect properties. Once the plans are completed, we'll go out to bid and look at award of a project to a contractor in May, start construction soon thereafter in the summer, and then the assessment hearing in the fall. Again, requested actions, looking to open the public hearing, receive public comment, order the improvements. Again, a supermajority is needed, 4/5 votes, in other words, all 3. And give direction on the project details. If there's if the town board wishes to change from the recommendations we're giving you in terms of street width or concrete curb and gutter, sorry about that. Give us that direction, and then authorizing the preparation of plans and specifications. And that's all I have. And happy to take any questions you might have.
Beth, you got to have questions on this one.
I'm surprised at the cost, of course. Kind of shocked. How did it end up being 2 inches? I mean, it was what spec, whatever. I mean, I was kind of shocked at that.
I know. That is in today's world, we use 3.5 to 4 inches of bituminous, and even our driveway standard is 3 inches. So,
I don't think I've ever worked on a project that had 2 inches. That's why I was so surprised.
yeah, and it appears that has contributed to the degradation.
Oh, I can imagine it would. Yeah. Do you anticipate that costs will be down? Like, what do you think the competition's going to be for contractors?
Yeah, I mean, we like to think we are on the higher side at this point with our estimates because we don't want to give you surprises of a higher bid. But sometimes, at times the competition can bring those costs down, or if there's too much work and there's saturation, those costs can be more. So we like to think that we're on the high side at this point. We received bids on another project in another community this week, and it was a $2.6 million estimate we had, and it was 2.2 was the bid we received. So,
Something.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I can see where you're going with it, and I can see why you want to do it. I have to admit, I'm still really shocked at the cost, but I guess that's always the way it's going to go.
Well, as I said with the other project, the rating is, it's in line for absolutely needing work. Second question is, going from a 22 to a 28 foot width, if you left it alone, does it change the assessment calculation at all for a house?
That's a good question. It was asked at the neighborhood meetings as well. That would be up to the appraiser to tell us that. I don't know that it would change it too much.
I mean, these assessment by an appraiser is based on improvement value to the property owner. So whether it's 22 or 28, I guess my value or my thought is it's not going to make any difference. And it's in our it's in township right away. You're not taking property, correct?
Correct.
Okay, another question, I guess.
Larry, does the road run right down the middle then? So there's, if you're
For
gonna
the
take-
most part,
you're gonna take 3 feet on each side?
that's what we'd propose. Yeah.
And then, does this road drain both ways? Is it high in the middle, going both ways, or?
It's high in the middle. It drains both ways down from the cul-de-sac down to this area, and from this high point down toward Centerville Road.
Right, and then, similar to like Silver Fox Road, those assessments were fairly high. So the board has the privy of looking at some other fundings that we have available to us that might affect the assessment costs, but we're not going to know until we go through this process, get the bids, and then see how we can work with that. But so obviously this 12,000 number is a hardcore number, but it can come down. It can't go up, but it can come down. And that's kind of something that the board here can negotiate if we feel that it's necessary to get the numbers down. Myself personally, we made a commitment 5 years ago when we started this project that curb and gutter is essential, especially for water control. Because of our lawsuit with the lake level, we are under a microscope on how we count every drop of water that comes into the township or leaves the township. And this is some way this is the best way we can to control that. So I guess I kind of want to stay with that curb and gutter issue. The width, once you tear the whole road up, I can't believe it's going to be that much of a saving to go another 6 feet. You've already got that whole area under construction, so I don't know if it is a public safety issue. I mean, what's our minimum in the township?
Well, we like to get 28.
Right, but I mean, when it's available, I think it'd be prudent for us to at least do that.
Yeah, there are other streets, as you know, in the township that are under that 28.
Well, we've got
And
some
there-
areas where they're very narrow. But,
Yeah, there's right-of-way issues. In this case, we don't have that issue.
right. So if there's an advantage or if there's a chance of doing that, I guess I'd like to see that done. But I think that's all I had. Did we waive it?
I don't think we did it. So I think we need to do it now before we.
Oh. I don't know if we waived the reading. We might have jumped right into it. I think we'll go back and, Steve, you want to make that motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that this hearing was properly published in the newspaper and waive the reading.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I
Okay, move that to the front.
moved to the front. And we've opened the public hearing already. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing since we really didn't do that piece either. I don't believe.
I haven't been here long enough to help you either.
All right.
Oh, we're doing it backwards. You don't want us to start
So
over, do
excited
you?
to get into this.
So I'll move to open the public hearing, which we've already had the presentation by our engineer.
I'll second it.
All right. All in favor?
Aye. Now we can do the other part.
All right. Now we need a motion to open up the public portion.
I'll make a motion to open the public comment portion of the hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now I can have neighborhood response. You'll have to come up to the podium with your name and your address for the record if you want to speak to this. Who gets the short straw?
Back up here now. Name is Reed Wallstead, 1094 Anderson Lane. And my issue is the road is wide enough the way it is. It might be needed as 3 no parking signs on one side of the road. We've never had an issue, and I've been here over 25 years. Got a grad party here at the corner or some car show, but it was pretty much said, park one side only. I mean, it's whatever. So I don't like the idea of it widening out.
Okay. Anything else, Reed? All right. Thank you.
Hi, Derek Brunson, 1114 Anderson Lane. I also agree with my other neighbor Reed. Believe that the road should be left at 22 foot. Never had any issues with the width or any traffic in there. As we were talking before, we had large concerns with the cost of the projects up front. And I believe that's kind of where we went down the rabbit hole of us not wanting the gutters. We're exploring different options to try to reduce the cost of the projects. And I think we even talked with Larry about possibly looking at a few of those numbers in the future. So, yeah. That would be it.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, before we get too far into this, under your own ordinance, whenever there's a street reconstruction, curbs, concrete curbs are mandated. The only option is the style of curb.
And it has to be concrete, not asphalt.
Excuse me?
It has to be concrete,
It has
not
to be
asphalt.
concrete, and there's only 10, you have to, there's only 2 specifications. You have an option of 2 different specifications, but you must, when you have a street reconstruction, the ordinance mandates concrete curbs.
Okay. Yes, sir. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Josh Farmer. I'm 1140 Anderson Lane. Just agreeing with Dale and Derek about the width. We'd like to keep it at 22 feet. We were under the impression 20 is the minimum for emergency vehicles. And the reason we want to keep it at 22 feet is because it's basically a private drive to us. There's not any traffic, going up and down Anderson Lane, just like Peterson Lane used to be. It's very quiet. And there aren't any concerns about parking. I mean, we have large enough driveways, and there's really no street parking from anybody other than the Anderson Lane residents. So it's wide enough in our eyes, and we want to keep that small town feel of White Bear Township with that staying at 22 feet versus widening it an extra 6 feet plus curbs. I mean, it seems like it's just, I know it's within the township's purview, but it just seems like it's taking away the beauty of our property in Anderson Lane. And so we wanted to be effective stewards of the township's dollars. That's why we said, hey, let's not do the curbing. Let's do the mill and overlay to try to keep the cost down. I understand trying to keep the road in, perfect condition with the curbing, but 22 feet would be ideal, just from all the residents in agreement.
All right. Thanks, Josh.
Mike McKinney, 1131 Anderson Lane. I just wanted to point out, he mentioned this project going with other projects going on. The state, Ramsey County, Anoka County is going to do County Road J. They're putting a new bridge on J this year. Next year, they'll be doing roundabouts at Centerville and J. It'd be nice not to have this project go at the same time they're doing that project.
Well, you got a lot of confidence in the county.
As much as I got in the township.
Oh, hey, no.
It don't. I've been to a number of the county meetings, and it certainly looks like it's going forward.
Yeah, they are slated to start this year.
So there's my confidence, and it will be a traffic jam on Centerville once Anoka County traffic can't get across the freeway or on the freeway going south. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mike. Anyone else? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Good evening, Dave Sell, 1155 Anderson Lane. I agree with all my neighbors and everything they're saying too. Yeah, I think part of our concern is really with the addition of all of the other construction that's going to be happening in and about that area. So the timing of this construction and this road is a significant effort and concern for us. In addition to that, the 22 feet wide just seems to make sense for us as neighbors too. We have plenty of in-driveway parking. Don't see the need for the additional width to the parking for the street.
Well, that is one advantage of surmountable curves, because you still are able to move. If in a case of a major emergency, you're still able to get up over the curb. Mm-hmm. But, all right, thank you. Mm-hmm. Patrick, would you like to, or Chad, would you want to go over the process if you want to dispute the assessment?
Oh, yeah, please let him.
This will.
Reed Wallstead, 1094 Anderson Lane. Larry, you mentioned that you're going to mill like 2 inches and pound it back down and put 3 on top. Where's the drainage going to change on that and cause issues? Because now you're raising the road 3 inches over what it was before.
Yes, so we would see the reclaiming and mixing that into the base and then feathering out the excess for the extra width if the board decides to go wider, and then doing the curb and gutter. So if the board decides not to add the width and they decide to keep it at 22, we would have to remove some material to be able to fit the curb in there.
And then with the cul-de-sac at the end, what was proposed to bring that out to for width?
What was the diameter change?
Yeah.
I'm not certain what we calculated for width on that. I know we can't get too large. We can do what we can to improve the size for better turnaround, but we're not going to meet our normal standards for a cul-de-sac because of the right of way we have there.
As a retired public works employee, I do realize there's a lot of streets without a turnaround also. Mm-hmm. So that's my thoughts on that.
Agreed. All right, Chad?
Mr. Chair, we're a bit ahead on that, but what the chair is referring to is this, that once a levy assessment is adopted, and the town is not adopting a levy assessment tonight, it's simply adopting a proposed assessment, you do have the right to challenge that amount by filing a appeal first with the township, and then filing that with district court. You have to, if you intend to appeal an assessment, and again, you don't have to do that yet because there's no levied assessment being adopted tonight, just a proposed assessment. You would have to first send written notice to the town saying you intend to object to the assessment. You then have 30 days from the date the assessment is adopted to serve the town with the petition challenging the assessment, and then also file that with district court. But again, we're a little early on that. But there's one point I think we're forgetting here, is that because the town bonds for these costs, under statute, you cannot assess less than 20% of the construction costs. That's a floor. The only way you can go below 20% is to hold a town-wide referendum allowing that assessment to drop below 20%. So you are bound to, you have a floor of at least 20% of the construction cost that must be assessed. In addition, you also have the terms of the bonds themselves, which normally require at least 20% assessment. So there is a floor under which the town cannot go if it's when it proposes a street improvement project. In this case, a street reconstruction project, correct, Larry?
All right, thanks, Chad. Larry, can we, when we put this out for bid, is it possible to have them bid it as strictly replacement and a cost of widening?
Oh, yes, we could put an alternate in our bid for the widening piece of it.
Okay, so that's something that at least we would know. If you're not saving anything, do you maybe want the road a little wider? But it would be a discretionary thing.
You'd still have the curb and gutter, though. The concrete curb and gutter would always be a piece of the,
Has to be a piece of that.
okay, I just want to be sure.
Under the town ordinances,
Right.
it has to be because it's street reconstruction.
Okay, I just want to be sure that's clear. Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so is there any other comments from the public? All right, hearing none, I'm going to ask for a motion to close the public portion.
I'll move to close the public portion of the hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, any other questions of staff?
No, well, I guess the question is that what you had just stated if we approve these, we're going to bid it two different ways?
Yeah, with an option? Or
Mr. Chair and Town Board, I maybe want to go back on that because I think when we design it, we're designing the curb elevations, and we basically have to design it two different ways if we wanted to bid it that way. It's not just a simple reduction because we're calculating elevations of that curb and the catch basins and the storm sewer, and so just simply bidding to not pave, the bidding it two ways, it's not as simple now that I think about it because you'd have to design it two ways then.
which goes back to the feasibility study and more.
Well, it'd be more design costs to be able to design it two different
We're
ways.
not going to save anything if it's a difference in cost, but we ate it up with design costs.
Yeah.
That change your motion, Steve?
Well, it certainly probably will. So based on that, I guess, are we going to discuss whether to change the project to 22 versus 28?
Oh, what's your feeling?
Well, again, that was the question I asked, if it was going to make a difference in the improvement, and the answer basically was probably not. But having said that, with the surmountable curbs and the public sentiment, I don't know if 20 makes that much difference, personally.
Beth?
So
I have to admit, I kind of agree. I'd prefer to see the 22. I think it does keep a small town feel. And it's all residential, so the people who live there drive there.
All right, so that's a consensus to stay at 22,
yeah,
but still, obviously, we have to stay with the curb and gutter.
yes, absolutely curb and gutter.
All right, does that give you enough there, Larry?
Can I ask a clarifying question? 22 feet plus the curb or 22 feet from back of curb to back of curb?
Me personally, it should be 22 feet plus the curb.
I agree. With
I
that.
agree with that.
Yeah.
That is going to give you a little bit more of a feel that the road's bigger, but you're not affecting the actual road itself. Does that work for the board?
Yeah.
For me?
Right, Steve?
So, yep. So I guess based off this, I'd make we'll do this in two parts. Based on town engineer review and recommendations, adopt a resolution ordering the improvements at a 22-foot width plus the curbing, surmountable curbing.
I'll second.
Well, Mr. Chair, I think I got to be honest with you, I'm not sure I understand exactly what you're doing.
Oh.
I think what you're saying is, are you going to have a 22-foot wide driving surface with curb on either side, or 22 feet from edge of curb to edge of curb to edge of curb? I mean, it's a little. Yeah, that's what I thought, but it's a little, I know you think that's what you're saying, but if you read it afterwards, it could be a bit
Driving
confusing.
surface.
Okay, fine. I would suggest you make that change. I'd recommend that.
I'll make that change to my recommendation.
All right, you still second it, Mark?
I will second it. Yes.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, that's where we're headed, folks.
And then the second part, based on town engineer review and recommendation, ordering preparation of plans and specifications based on this change of 22-foot drivable surface.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We do appreciate your input, and we understand what you guys are going through, so hopefully we got a good accommodation there for you. All right, we're going to move on.
Thank you.
We have item 7C, the cannabis zoning. We're going to consider amending the township ordinance regarding cannabis. Who's going to cover this?
I'll cover this for you.
Lucky you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, board members. Before you tonight is a draft ordinance to consider amendments to your zoning ordinance. That's ordinance number 35. These amendments would cover uses and performance standards and buffers regarding uses for cannabis businesses.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. It is a public hearing.
Yep.
We need a motion to waive the
Yeah,
reading.
I'll move to waive the reading.
It's a foggy night.
Published.
You have a second?
I'll second, sir.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, then I need a motion to open up the public.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll second.
All
Sorry.
in favor?
Aye.
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 Sorry, Evan. Now you
Oh,
can
now
go.
we're good.
We're good now.
All right, so as you may be aware, the state recently legalized recreational marijuana or cannabis, depending on which term you prefer to use. As a result, they also created a state agency referred to as the Office of Cannabis Management. A little bit of noise here. So you will see the acronym OCM throughout the memo and the ordinance tonight. That department has drafted and released rules that would essentially help govern and regulate these cannabis uses. They also came up with the names of different license types. You'll see those on pages 2 and 3 of the staff memo before you tonight. They also include definitions as well as a description of the types of activities or uses that would be associated with each of those license types. I would note that the licensed lower potency hemp edible retailers, typically referred to as a THC retailer, those are currently permitted in the township. Those were recently legalized prior to this bill a couple years ago. Those are permitted currently under Ordinance 97. We will cover those in a little bit more detail, but for reference, those are limited to your B2 zone. So that's any commercial zone. And then those are currently located in the township within existing convenience stores, off-sale liquor stores, or tobacco shops. The state, under that bill that authorized the legalization of recreational cannabis, they did set buffer requirements that we'll get into later tonight. But just to give you an overview, they set a maximum distance you could establish from certain properties. That would include a 1,000-foot buffer max from schools, and then a buffer of up to 500 feet from any daycare facilities, residential treatment facilities, or as defined in state statute, attractions within a public park that is regularly used by minors, including playgrounds and athletic fields. So a lot of communities have essentially determined what parks meet that definition and then would apply that buffer from there. I would note state statute does allow you to have less buffer footage than those maximum amounts. So some communities have had, say, a 700-foot buffer from schools or maybe a 400-foot buffer from a daycare, but they do establish that upper limit for the town to establish. The Planning Commission did review draft language back in December. Based on their review, the recommendation was to create new uses for each of those licenses. And so you will see in the draft, as well as in the memo before you tonight, those new definitions for those uses defined in the ordinance moving forward. In addition to that, the township should consider how these types are allowed under your zoning ordinance. That would be whether as a permitted use or a conditional use. As you may recall, a conditional use requires a CUP. The Planning Commission, when they reviewed this request, they made all these uses conditional. And so the more commercial type uses in their draft recommendation for you tonight, they recommend those being placed as conditional uses under that B2 zoning. And then more of the manufacturer or industrial type cannabis uses, those are recommended as conditional under the I1 zone. So that's the industrial zone within the township. And I can share a map of the zoning for the town just as a reference while we're going through this. I believe. Are you sharing still? Okay.
I go ahead and turn your screen. Oh, there you go.
There we go. So the screen obviously cuts off parts of the township, but that dark red for reference is that B2 commercial zone throughout the township. And then the dark purple is your industrial zones. Obviously, since these uses are, non-residential in nature, this would not be allowed in your residential zones, which are all shown in different shades of yellow or brown here before you tonight. Getting back to the memorandum, for reference, the town board may want to consider whether those low potency hemp edible retailers should be a conditional use as well. Again, they're permitted right now. Is that something you want to see remain a permitted use, or would you be okay with that as a conditional use? That's something we can discuss tonight. In addition to whether it's permitted or conditional, the Planning Commission also established draft language for performance standards. So that is including, where is it located, how are you conducting this use, et cetera. So for these uses specifically, you'll have two sections. You'll see the general performance standards that apply to all the cannabis businesses. That is 7-20.1 before you tonight in that draft ordinance. And you'll see requirements regarding storage, so no outdoor storage, regardless of the use, where it can be conducted. Under our draft ordinance, it has to be within an enclosed structure, so you can't be operating or running the business out of a tent or some other open structure outside. Applicants must also submit plans showing that they meet state requirements. So again, that OCM rules that have been established, they would have to prove to us that they're able to meet all of those requirements, and then any other state, local, or county regulations that may apply. Some of the other uses you'll see further down in that draft ordinance, as well as in the memorandum, have their own performance standards specific just to those uses. Some of those are in regards to light and glare, so those apply to more of your industrial or manufacturing type activities. Some of them also have requirements regarding sprinklers and fire suppression, and then there is some size limitation requirements to ensure that they are meeting state statute requirements. Those buffers that we had discussed earlier tonight, the Planning Commission did recommend adopting those buffers at those maximum distances as allowed under state statute. Those are located in 7-20.2, I believe, in your memorandum. They also recommended adding some additional definitions to ensure that our buffers would be measured correctly from all of those uses moving forward. Based on the Planning Commission's review, they also recommended two other buffer requirements. So in addition to the zoning map you had before you tonight, you also had two other maps in your meeting packet. One showed just those buffers as allowed under state statute. The other map showed those additional buffers the Planning Commission recommended. One was a 1,000-foot buffer between properties with cannabis businesses or between properties with a cannabis business and an off-sale liquor store. That other buffer was a buffer from a cannabis business and churches, and that was also recommended at 1,000 feet. And so The one map you can see there is not a lot of property, but there is some property in both the B2 zone and the I1 zone that could be allowed for one of those cannabis uses moving forward. You'll see primarily down by Goose Lake, Otter Lake Road, actually just north here of the building. A handful of industrial parcels would not be impacted by a buffer along Centerville Road. South of H2, north of H2 would be a handful of parcels, both industrial and B2. And then up by Highway 61 on the north edge of the township would be possibly allowed moving forward. With those additional buffers as recommended by the Planning Commission, you do see a lot of property then no longer viable under those buffer requirements. And so in consultation with legal counsel, we're not sure if that would be a wise move moving forward, just given what is outlined before us under state statute. But we did want to prepare those graphics to show you kind of what the different impacts are moving forward. So tonight, before you do have that draft ordinance, you do have the option to adopt it or deny the request. You could also table the issue for further discussion.
Steve, where do you want to start?
Well, this whole business of cannabis is kind of a loose process at the moment. It doesn't have a lot of answers. But, we have to move forward. There's time to move and time not to move. But, Chad, you looked at these after the Planning Commission made some recommendations, and that's how we got to this concerns on the second or the bottom graph.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And being that is what we know today, I mean, I think the Planning Commission did a very decent job of going through each one of these different types of businesses and putting these ordinances in place with your assistance. So I think we should adopt them, personally.
I do want to echo what Evan said. I have a concern about the buffer for churches. The statute, chapter 342, is rather encompassing. And under existing law, when the state adopts a statute that is so encompassing, it's got to be, you have to consider it to be occupying the field. Which, in other words, what that means is that you have to conform to the statute. You can be more liberal than the statute, but you can't be stricter than the statute. And my concern is, when it came to buffers, they mentioned the statute says 1,000 feet from schools and 500 feet from daycare facilities, residential treatment facilities, and again, any attractions that are regularly used by minors within a public park. The statute is silent about churches, which leads me to believe they never felt a buffer from a church is necessary. So I am concerned about 7-2.2D, which talks about 1,000 feet from a church. I don't think that's sustainable.
What if those churches run daycares or?
That would be okay.
Because of that business being run
Yes.
out of a church?
And so if that being the case, then you would have to say contain a church that runs a daycare facility.
Because we have, 3 churches in the township?
But then it could only be 500 feet though.
Right, but I'm pretty sure they all run some sort of care facility.
And so
I know Bel Air does, and I know Eaglebrook does.
but it's a good point. So I would recommend to avoid any confusion. You simply delete 7-20.2D and rely on the fact that they're operating daycare centers.
Yeah, so right now, we did propose a new definition for daycare. It would note any location licensed by the Department of Health to provide care for one or more children outside their own home for gain or incentive, or otherwise on a regular basis for any part of a 24-hour day. So that was intended to encapsulate any daycare. And so whether that's in a church, in a house, school building, wherever.
Daycare's a daycare.
Yep.
Chad, do these buffers run similar to sex offender type? I can't remember. I know we went through that some years ago.
Yeah. Geez, it's been a while since we talked about that. But yeah, I mean, it's a similar concept.
All right.
Well, we had to designate a district for
Right.
those sex
Well, not so much where they live. We have a district for adult entertainment.
adult entertainment district, yes.
There's sex offenders,
Adult entertainment, yeah.
adult
okay, I'm
entertainment,
off base.
liquor stores, guns. There's a lot of buffers out there. But again, because this statute is meant to be so encompassing, I think you have to consider it to be occupying the field. And we're pretty much bound by the terms of the statute. And since it's silent on churches, I don't think we should include churches.
So we have to change one of these.
Again, just delete 7-20.2D.
And Chad, to clarify, would C also be up for
That's
deletion
another
too?
one. I was about to talk about that one. Thanks, Evan.
You know, if I was jumping ahead of you there.
Yeah.
You did.
Well, no, I'm glad you reminded me of that because we can forget things. And Evan just brought up 7-20.2C. That talks about 1,000 feet from between cannabis businesses or off-sale liquor uses. Again, the statute is silent on that. And since it's silent, you have to assume that they never meant for those buffers to be in place. So I think we also would have to delete 7-20.2C. Did we catch them all, Evan?
Yeah, I think one other point, and it's up to the board on whether they'd want to include it in ordinance 35, so under zoning, or if you want to include it under a ordinance that encompasses licensing. But state statute did allow cities, towns, and I believe counties as well, but you can set a limit on the number of retail locations to 1 per 12,500 residents. And so if you want to include that in the zoning ordinance, that would be one way to limit those retail locations in particular.
Does that eliminate the confusion of 50 applicants?
Right. So if you have a lot of people come in, we'd only be able to allow one to get a license for retail location. Now, some of those other uses, whether it's like a production or a transporter, those still could move forward, but those, retail, so like a dispensary, is what a lot of places refer to them as, that would be limited to one in the township. And then Chad can correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's enough licenses issued within the county ahead of us, getting a request, we would not be obligated to issue a license. Is that correct?
That's exactly right, at all. The way the statute reads is it's one license per 12,500 population.
Yep.
So at this point in time, you'd only have to issue one license. And also, and Evan's exactly right, the statute does state that if you take the population of the county, divide it by 12,500, that determines the number of licenses, retail licenses we're talking about, that are allowed. And the minute you have, in this case, based on the population of Ramsey County, which is 552,350, the maximum number of units, or the minimum number of licenses is 44. So the minute there's 44 licenses issued in Ramsey County, the town would not be obligated to issue any licenses whatsoever for retail establishments.
Seems to me St. Paul would take up a big chunk of that.
Yep.
It's entirely possible, yeah. And understand the 12,500 is really a floor. If for some reason you want to issue more, you have the right to do so. But you don't have to go below 12,500.
Is that retail license? We've had conversations about this in the past. That retail license can have multiple locations within that license, though, right? Retailer?
That's true.
Oh, so
But it counts as one retail
on the
license.
same license, like a LLC that has two different and corporations could have
And
two
that,
licenses?
no, actually, it's, locations. The statute does say, however, the statute, as I look at my memo here, the retailer can have multiple retail locations. So that is a problem with the statute. If they, not surprising.
But that doesn't count against the number you're in.
No, I don't think it does. It's retail licenses. And the licenses are issued to a retailer. So they could have multiple locations.
In the same jurisdiction?
In the same jurisdiction.
But that's only, I'm thinking maybe that would be holiday.
Well, hopefully, okay. Yeah.
Circle K.
Yeah, I think the intent is like you'd have a chain potentially.
Yeah, but each of those little
hang on
individual
here.
stores is owned by it or managed by a different
Right.
Oh, but I would say, I'm looking at my memo again, the Office of Cannabis Management has interpreted the statute limiting it to one retail location per 12,000. So I have to correct myself.
It wouldn't be per jurisdiction.
Yes.
It's per population.
It's based on population, but also location. So while a retailer can have multiple retail locations, the locations are limited to 12,500. I apologize, I was a little off on that.
Well, it would probably be the first thing, because this thing is kind of shady or cloudy in certain spots anyway, so.
Take in action.
I don't want to use the word shady, that's not a right word.
And understand, that's the Office of Cannabis Management's interpretation of the statute. Doesn't mean someone's going to challenge it and say their interpretation is incorrect. But right now, you can presume based on the OCM interpretation that it's one location per 12,500.
And we could end up with none.
You could end up with none if there are 44 locations already established in Ramsey County.
What do they do? By a lottery, or how does this?
Essentially.
Essentially, that's what they're doing.
Really, it's just.
And then
Wow.
there's an aspect of what's the term? I want to be careful here. The disadvantaged population has an inside track for licenses.
There's a social equity
Equity, yes. Thank you. Evan. I
avenue
couldn't
that you
think
can
quite
pursue,
the
and
phrase
then
they were using. Yeah.
they have a lottery. Well, they were doing a lottery originally for the
Is
licenses
this
due to
office
the number
up
of
and running?
demand.
Cannabis management? Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Are they accepting applications as we speak?
They reopened it.
They reopened it to have a lottery sometime this summer with the first retail operations in the fall, hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get too deep
Sound like I
into
know
the
something.
weeds on this one, but pardon the pun, that wasn't intended. So for a cannabis growing business, as opposed to just a retail business, there's still only going to be one license?
No, there's one retail location
Okay.
per 12,000 in terms of cultivation, transportation, storage. There's no limit on the number of licenses that can be issued in a municipality,
Oh, okay.
other than the fact that you can limit the districts and you can
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
yeah.
Do those still have to follow the borders, the
buffers.
The buffers?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, so under our proposal, those would apply to all of
yeah,
them.
that's correct.
Okay, so Evan, under this map you've got here, how many spots do we actually have and still clear the
I
buffers?
think it's the yellow dots, isn't it?
Well,
So the yellow dots, that's the current THC retailers as of December when we made this map. You'll see the cross-hatched parcels. There's like a light blue crosshatch. So I can zoom in here on the big screen for you. But so if we're just looking at the buffers established by state statute, you'll have a handful of parcels up here by Highway 61, the north end of the township. On the other side, northwest, again, you have two existing THC retailers. You have two B2 zoned parcels here, then a handful of industrial. All of those are developed except for one along Highway 35 by Schwing, and then a vacant parcel that's undeveloped owned by North Oaks. Moving south, you do have one currently undeveloped industrial parcel here. Further down, so this is south of Haraeus, there's another already occupied industrial parcel. Across the interstate, there's a couple parcels. This would be on Parkway. There is a parcel here. This is actually a stormwater retention pond owned by the township. There's a small parcel here. This is southwest of White Bear Parkway that is occupied by industrial building already. And then a handful of industrial parcels over here. So this would be north of the township building here, actually, east and west of Our Lake Road. The only other parcel of note, there is a warehouse building that's used for different commercial businesses located along 61 in Buffalo.
That's the building that's across the street from Eagle Brook, right?
Correct.
All electric or something is it called? I don't remember.
It's a dance studio.
Yeah, there's a couple different businesses there.
I think if you had some kind of furniture stuff going in there too.
All right, Beth, got any comments or questions?
I find it very daunting. It seems like it's kind of clear as mud in a way, because you really don't know what's going to happen. Right, with the lottery, you may not get a.
That's why I'm glad that we've been kind of deliberate in our approach with this. It's just, I mean, it's kind of, the direction's going to change every 90 days, I think. But we got to get some foundation in place for us, at least for a starting point here.
And you definitely have to have it, because one of the requirements of a license application is that there is a zone that it meets zoning requirements of the municipality in which it's located. So you have to have, you have to adopt zoning to deal with these issues right now, so that when the application comes in, there's a certification that it does meet or does not meet zoning.
Right. So in the situation of, let's say we didn't adopt anything, someone could apply for any property and we would have no regulatory ability to say you can't do that, or, you know, you have to store something within a building, conduct it within a building, so we would just have nothing in the book. So this would give us, as Pat said, a position moving forward.
You have to be proactive on this one.
Yep.
So essentially, you have to make the motion according to the corrections we made. What was it on 7-2C and D?
Yes.
Steve, I'll let you make it, and I'll second it.
We're not there yet.
No,
Nice idea, but we're not there yet.
Okay.
I'm not in favor of that. I think I've asked all the questions I got. So
well, if there's no other questions of staff, I need a motion to open it up for public comment.
I'll move to open it up for public comment.
I'll second.
All fair, say aye.
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 Anyone here wants to discuss this hot topic?
Yes, there is.
I just need your name and address for the record.
Good evening, board, staff, and consultants. My name is Jim Faulkner, and I live at 2622 Westergren Court in the township. But I'm here this evening to discuss the potential for operating a cultivation and additional associated services at my commercial buildings that I own at 2340 and 2350 County Road J in the township, very northeast corner on the map with all the red on it. So primarily here to address Ordinance 35, which you've discussed, prior to the public hearing. A business partner and myself would like to own and operate a cannabis manufacturing facility, which is growing. And as part of that, we would also do the manufacturing portion and the the packaging and the wholesaling portion of the business. It's called a micro grow operation. It's specifically the smallest of the grow operations, which has a limited plant canopy of 5,000 square feet, which actually is quite large. The space that we have available in my building, of which our grow corporation, our micro grow corporation, would lease, is about 1,300 square feet with a small potential addition. So our grow area is rather small, even in the terms of the micro grow. I unfortunately missed getting to the planning commission. My fault. I'm sorry to come here without being in the proper order, but I did miss getting to the planning commission for this. While we have in fact been working for quite some time on the legal and the application aspect of the project. We've run into a situation where under item C, which you have discussed, the second of your location items, item C, of about 1,000 square foot or 1,000 linear foot distance from cannabis businesses or off-sale liquor. It's a little difficult to, at least for me, a little difficult to establish exactly what the distance was, where it would go to. There are multiple ways. If you took it from the property corner, that's the furthest or closest. If you took it from the front door, if you took it from the crow flies. But nonetheless, I am 900 plus feet from the liquor store, Bald Eagle Liquor, and from the closest licensed low dosage, which is the Holiday Station, I am somewhere around 500 square feet.
Give or take, yeah.
Corner to corner or something like that. Or linear feet, I'm sorry. So the current proposed ordinance would preclude us from obtaining our zoning. And thank you, Mr. Lemons, for bringing up that as part of our application, which is quite detailed and complicated, is that we have to have zoning to be able to obtain our license. And I think that's a good part of the state statute. And what it also does is it brings to all communities that you need to act on this, otherwise you will not get anybody in the business. So what I would like to discuss or propose is a review of those distances. And one of the things that we noticed as we reviewed the 7-20.2 is that on each one of the items, A, B, C, and D, they're all referring to the whole group of licenses that OCM will be issuing. There are 9 to 10 individual licenses that encompass the grow operations, which there are 3, and then there is everything from testing, manufacturing, so forth and so on, all the way up to dispensary, which is retail. And I believe that I don't believe anybody is going to try to swing the bat for a home run and open up, especially a meso business or micro business, small business, with all of these elements. Highly unlikely, just because of the square footage requirements and the capital outlay and the staff and all the things that go along with that. We have studied this and looked at this in about 20 of the 23 states that currently have the legislation. And for the most part, their licenses are pretty much segmented into a grow operation that may encompass all the way through transportation or stop short of that, but into full production and establishing a product that will go from a wholesaler to a retailer, and then jumps to the actual retailers. So what was a little unusual in this zoning ordinance was that all 4 of the distances, be it from 1,000 feet to 500 feet, were encompassing all these broad uses. And I can't speak to zoning ordinances in other locations, but it would make some sense if it was looked at in a more individual basis for the uses. I understand, and I don't disagree with a separation from certain uses, although I am a little bit confused on 720.2C of how Planning Commission got to 1,000 feet to those 2 listed uses, which are licensed cannabis businesses, which would be basically a convenience store that is selling a low dosage. Evan, you can help me out here a little bit. You know a little more about this than I do, but that are selling those prior approved low dosage products, including gummies and so forth. I don't know. I understand the Holiday
and Bald Eagle Station both have purchased those licenses, to my knowledge.
They have the THC license
They have,
currently.
right, and then the liquor store is the liquor store. I'm not quite sure where I can figure where a grow operation is quite as related to those uses. Nonetheless, the Planning Commission looked at it that way. I would like to request that there be some consideration for the distance from one or both of my buildings on my property. They're 33 and a half years now to these two other uses, Holiday and to Bald Eagle and the Bald Eagle Liquor.
Jim, you're talking about the upstairs of that strip mall? What area are you talking about here?
I'm talking about my 23, 40, 50 County Road J buildings in the I-1.
Oh, okay. All right, I'm sorry. I was thinking the Bald Eagle.
Around the corner.
All right.
Yeah, they're the two convenience stores, which are Holiday and Bald Eagle.
All right, I got you.
And then the Bald Eagle Station liquor store, a separate building.
Okay.
So with that, that's my request for consideration. I realize you have a little bit of a challenge ahead, and then I'm ready for any questions.
Well, Evan, would this be something that would have to go back to Planning Commission again?
So I guess our discussion earlier about the buffers and when you discussed removing 7-20.2C, that would get rid of that buffer between all the businesses. So just to make that clear, what we had discussed earlier was to not have that buffer apply. And so that's the map you see before you tonight. This other map, also in your meeting memo, as Jim is alluding to, when you do apply those buffers between businesses and off-sale liquor stores, you do encapsulate his property and then a bunch of adjacent properties as well. And so I think that's addressing your concerns. Is that correct, Jim?
Right, yeah.
Correct.
The distances, I guess, no matter which way we measure them, would preclude me from operating in my building. And why we're there is because I've been there a long time. I have many tenants. I have vacant space, and I had a desire to, move into some different ventures and businesses, and had this opportunity to work with a very fine partner who is also a business owner in the township currently.
As we get more and more confused. So what you had recommended was already to get rid of 2C and 2D.
That's what we had discussed prior to.
So that would help address
Correct.
your issue. Okay.
And there's another little, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, and your further thing is if there were to be limitations, it shouldn't be a broad spectrum of all the types of cannabis operations. You said you could live with retailers, et cetera, but not necessarily growers.
I think Councilman Ruzick, what I see coming down, and you mentioned, there's a lot of balls in the air and a lot of things going on, is that as somebody may come to the township to talk about a retailer and so forth, all of these uses that are listed in the statute and listed in your zoning are all part of the buffer. But with respect to the entire proposed township ordinance, many of those elements pretty much only apply to one or more of these different uses. An example would be a transporter is nothing more than somebody that has the appropriate license from OCM, the appropriate vehicle, and a computer and an office. That's all they have, because they're going to pick up from a wholesaler and they're going to take it to another processor manufacturer, or they're going to take it right to a dispensary, a retailer. So there's the one issue is all these things are kind of all listed under 720.2, and it might be worthwhile, in addition to dealing with A, B, C, and D and distances, is to take a look at how they apply to not just the distances, but to all the rest of the ordinance. The rest of the ordinance is fine. I have no exceptions.
I think with all of these changes that occur, there's going to be some refinements I mean, I don't think you can write a perfect ordinance
Right.
when we don't have a clear vision of what the cannabis rules are. So, I mean, it's going to be revised. Just as the legislature has been talked about, that they are going to have to relook at a lot of the cannabis activity because it's not, there's a lot of things that are not clear. So your point being, I get it.
Yeah. An addendum to the statute is forthcoming.
Yeah.
Chad, you had a comment you wanted to make?
Well, actually, it occurred to me that all the licenses that we've already issued for cannabinoid products, they become void now that the OCM is issuing licenses because OCM controls not just cannabis products, they also control cannabinoid as well.
Correct. But they haven't issued their licenses yet, so we're in this
Well, they
weird
haven't.
limbo.
They haven't. So
Yeah.
that's the problem.
You are,
here.
yeah.
It's kind of like,
This is unbelievable.
yeah, it's,
Don't even have a license that I'm arguing about.
it's really what's gonna, I can see what I foresee happening is this, is that someone gets a license to sell cannabis or cannabinoid products. Well, actually, take that back. Someone applies for a license and we tell them the location doesn't meet the zoning requirement. Yet the minute they start issuing licenses, the licenses become, let me back up, that we tell the OCM that no, it's not allowed under zoning because it's within so many feet of an existing cannabinoid license. Yet, once they issue the licenses, that license ceases to exist. Therefore, it doesn't violate the buffer. But more importantly, again, the statute's pretty clear about what buffers are allowed.
Right. So I think going back to our earlier discussion, if we just get rid of it, it would save us administratively a headache. Chad legally doesn't have to deal with it, and it would address Jim and the market's concerns.
But yeah, it's got to make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of circular arguments here.
Yes.
The more we talk about it,
We're trying to blaze a trail forward here somehow.
Yes.
We're all getting educated.
Yeah, but I don't want to reinvent the wheel here.
No, but I do believe that in terms of buffers, we are limited to schools, daycare,
Parks and residential
parks and
facilities.
yeah. Maybe I'm being a little more restrictive, but I don't think so.
I don't think so, you are, but
All right, so how does the state view a grow production or a grow facility?
Well,
Did you looked at that planning?
Yeah, so you could just do growing, and that would be a cultivator license. What Jim is looking for himself would be a micro business, and so that would encapsulate, as he noted, cultivating, so growing, manufacturing, and then packaging, and then having that be available to sale to whether it's a wholesaler or a retail business of some sort. Is that correct? Yep.
Yeah. Then you throw the retail factor in there. That's one where the buffers come into play.
But the immediate concern for you disappears if we delete the buffer
That's it.
Between businesses.
between the businesses.
Then I could you could issue me a zoning certificate and I could put that in my application and they'd say wonderful.
Me? I wouldn't know what to do with it.
no, we'd forward it to your house, Ralph.
Yeah, Ralph will send it to you. How's that?
Thank you. One sale made.
All right, you got anything else, Jim?
That is it.
Any questions of
Thank you
Mr.
for
Faulkner?
consideration.
Are you growing this stuff hydroponically? I'm just curious. Hydroponically? Are you growing it hydroponically?
Yes, that's a good question. We have been studying this for about a year, and we have determined that the hydroponic drip system is the way that we would set it up and we would operate. We're studying those. They are the least amount of water, and they're the best. To me, that's the best systems. And we're working on, as part of our application, our water usage. Our electric usage is very minimal because the lights are LED, and probably going to be 12 volts, so they don't even measure on the scale. The waste is controlled and actually would go to a certified waste company as far as the stems, the vines, and the rest of that. So our water usage, we've drilled in on the best grow operation, and that's the way that many of the growers around the country are going now, is on a drip system as opposed to a flood it all and pump the water back through in a reservoir. We're working on those numbers, trying to get some more data. We only have the space for 330 plants at this time, which is a relatively small grow operation. But that's a good question.
How many different varieties? I'm curious.
Water's expensive.
It is. I'm curious how many varieties you're going to grow.
Oh gosh, that's another good question.
You're pretty knowledgeable about that.
Probably 4.
I love growing plants, but not marijuana.
Right.
Probably 4 in a cycle. That's. I'd say 4, but probably not more than 6.
Okay.
But depending on the market conditions and the sales and so forth, it could be 1.
I got to go back to one thing, Evan. Square footage, there was a minimum?
Correct. So
I think it's a maximum, isn't it, Evan, in terms of the
yeah, so for the cannabis cultivator, I should say it is a maximum, as Chad noted.
5,000.
So canopy of 30,000 square feet would be the max for cultivator use. If you are a mezzo license, you'd be limited to 15,000 square feet. Then for a micro license, you'd be limited to 5,000 square
Well, there's no minimum.
There's a maximum.
I don't. Okay.
Yeah. They refer to that as a grow area, which is a whole other calculation, which we worked on and done because we've measured plants. And we would be at my space that we would be occupying, we would have a maximum of 334 plants, which is under 500 square feet. We're allowed 5,000. So we'd be at 10%, possible small expansion from that. But generally speaking, that would be where our grow area would be.
Would that building require sprinkling or not?
We are sprinkling.
Okay. All right, any other questions? All right, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Ralph, you want to speak to this?
Any other public for this topic?
I'm not incriminating myself.
Is that a no? All right, there's no one else here. I need a motion to close the public comment portion.
I'll move to close the public comment portion of the hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, what is the pleasure of the board?
All right, to make this short and sweet, are we just considering approving the Township Ordinance 35 and deleting these two? I mean, is that what we're up to?
Yeah, so we're proposing, or we've discussed removing 7-20.2C,
And D.
7-20.2D,
Yep.
and then adding in the limit on the number of retail licenses as
1.
set out in state statute.
At one point, you had asked if we were going to talk about conditional use or permitted use. Do we have to do?
So right now it's proposed as conditional. If you guys want to change that, you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the way we've proposed it.
Correct.
Okay. Boy, this is going to be hard. So I'm proposing that, I make a motion to amend Township Ordinance number 35 regarding cannabis. Okay, and deleting section, I'm going to have this wrong numbers, 7.20.C, 2C, and 2D. Correct. Is that?
And you want to add in a statement regarding the limit on retail licenses.
Oh, yes, and limit the retail licenses to 1.
Actually, I would recommend, instead of saying 1, that you follow that you limit it to 1 license per 12,500 residents.
So amended.
You might want to reference the statute.
Yes.
That's based on the statute.
Good point,
Reference the statute.
Statute is statute 342.13H in parentheses, small h in parentheses.
You were going to say that anyway, right, Steve?
Sure, that. I go right along with that.
Right at the tip of your tongue, right? Yeah.
I'll second it.
Hey,
All
there we
right.
go.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Until the state changes something again. It's like
Next week.
It's
And
a
one-
hitting a
one
floating
point.
target.
I think you did the right thing tonight. And we actually will probably, Evan and I will have to come back and talk to you about what conditions should the conditional use permit should contain. For example, you can restrict the hours in which the retailers' locations can operate.
Okay.
Hey, please give us some guidance.
As much as we're allowed under the statute.
All right, we have no other new business, no added agenda items. Open time. Ralph, got anything else? Name and address, Ralph.
Yep, Ralph Tilma, 4294 Oakmead Lane. So we've had a really big discussion about buffer zones, and you got to be this far away from a church and this far away from a daycare. But right up here on Highway 61 and 96, we have 4 liquor stores, and they're all within 1,000 feet of each other. So it seems to me kind of ridiculous that we have to set up all these buffer zones for cannabis, but we don't have anything like that for selling liquor. It's kind of ridiculous. Then the other question I have is for the engineer. Have we had any water main breaks this year because of the cold weather?
Should ask Dale while he was here.
Yeah, not because of the cold.
Not because of the cold.
Not because of the cold.
Because I remember in the past, we had quite
Yeah.
a few. And the city of White Bear Lake was out there every day fixing water mains. But we haven't had that.
Don't
We
jinx
had,
us.
we had a water break, but it has not been said that it was caused by the cold.
Okay.
So,
And Mr. Chair, if I
That's
can
all I
address one question.
Come up with right now.
You know, Ralph, you raised this question about buffers. It's an interesting point of law is that when the Minnesota statutes get so detailed that they preempt an area for they don't leave no discretion for the town, for any municipality. That's called occupying the field. But they don't occupy the field in every area. I don't think there's any statute that sets a buffer for liquor stores.
No, there can't be.
No, which actually, because the statute sets no buffer for liquor stores, that would allow local municipalities to set their own buffers. As long as the state doesn't preempt it, and as long as there's a statute that does allow a municipality to issue licenses, they could make those kind of conditions. So that's why you have to read these statutes so carefully, because the minute they start preempting things, we're bound by we're basically hemmed in. But
Well,
if they're
seeing as
not,
though the township's pretty much built out, I don't think we ever have to
yeah.
worry about that again.
Yeah, but my point being is that that's why you read these statutes so closely, because if the preemption is so important, if they don't preempt it, you have flexibility.
Right.
As long as they give you statutory authority to issue the license. But the minute they start setting out details, such as this issue about buffers for cannabis products, then our hands are more or less tied. When I say our hands, I'm talking about the towns.
yeah.
So, yeah, you raise an interesting point.
All right, thanks, Ralph.
Can I ask a question?
We're still in open time.
If this is published in the next couple of weeks, then I can go ahead and submit a zoning application? Excellent, we will. Thank you.
Right, thanks. All right, seeing no one else, I need a motion to receive agenda material and supplements.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. I need a motion to adjourn at 8:54.
So moved.
Yeah, you're right.
All in favor?
Actually,
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. What were you saying? Sorry, I missed it.